My beloved child, wait, before your mind tries to rush ahead, before you start forming answers you think you already know. Pause here for a moment, because something deeper is unfolding, something you were not expecting to feel this early. There is a quiet shift happening, not loud, not dramatic, not something the world can easily point at, but something real enough that even now, a part of you feels it, like a subtle pull in your chest that you can't quite explain. And this is where the truth begins to move. Not the kind of truth that shocks you instantly, but the kind that slowly reveals itself, layer by layer, until you realize, it was always there, waiting for you to notice. Because someone, yes, your person, has reached a moment they never thought would come. Not because they stopped caring, not because something ended, but because something changed. And here's what you need to understand, they didn't arrive at this moment suddenly. This was not one decision, not one day, not one conversation. This was built, quietly, over time. Think about that for a second. How many moments did you feel something but chose silence instead? How many times did you sense a shift, but told yourself, maybe it's nothing? And how many times did they wait, hoping you would say something, do something, reveal something that would make everything clearer? Don't skip this part, because this is where everything starts connecting. They have come to know something about you, not something dramatic, not something negative, but something undeniable, something that changed the way they see you, and more importantly, the way they see the future with you. And here's the part no one tells you. Sometimes, it's not what we hide intentionally that creates distance. It's what we never realized we were holding back. Let that sink in. Because your person, they didn't just wake up and decide to stop waiting. No, they reached a point where waiting started to feel like standing still, while something inside them was ready to move. But move toward what? That's the question that's been quietly growing inside them. And the answer, it leads back to you. There was a moment, small, almost invisible, when something clicked in their mind. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a simple realization. That's why, and from that moment, everything began to feel different. Have you ever had that experience? Where one small understanding suddenly rearranges everything you thought you knew? That's exactly where they are right now, and it's not pushing them away from you. It's pushing them toward clarity, but clarity doesn't always feel comfortable. Sometimes, clarity feels like distance. Sometimes, it feels like silence. Sometimes, it feels like someone stepping back, not because they want to leave, but because they finally understand what they've been standing in. And this is where your heart might start asking questions. Why now? Why like this? What changed? Stay with this, because the answer isn't what you expect. What they came to know about you wasn't something you said directly. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't even a clear moment. It was a pattern. A quiet pattern, repeated over time, that revealed something deeper about how you feel, how you think, and how you hold back. And once they saw it, they couldn't unsee it. Pause for a second. What if the thing they realized is something you've been unaware of all along? Not a flaw, not a mistake, but a truth about your emotional world. Something like how you protect your feelings, how you wait for certainty before opening up, how you feel deeply, but express carefully. And for a long time, they admired that. They respected it. They even tried to match your pace. But something inside them started whispering, "How long do I wait?" without knowing what's really there. And that whisper slowly became louder, not as frustration, but as a need for honesty, for movement, for something real they could stand on. Because love, connection, whatever this is between you, it can't survive forever in uncertainty. It needs something to hold on to. And this is the part that changes everything. They realize that you feel more than you show. Let that land gently, not less, not confused, not disconnected, but more. And that realization, instead of bringing them closer instantly, made them pause. Because now they know. It's not about whether feelings exist. It's about whether those feelings will ever be fully shared. Do you see the difference? This is not about losing something. This is about understanding something. And once understanding arrives, waiting starts to feel different. Not meaningless, but incomplete. Because now they're standing at a crossroads inside themselves. One path says, keep waiting, maybe one day everything will open naturally. The other path says, move forward, not away from them, but toward clarity, even if it changes everything. And right now, they are standing between those two paths, not rushing, not reacting, just feeling, and thinking, and slowly realizing. They can't stay in the same place forever. Here's where it becomes even more important for you to listen carefully. Because this moment, this exact emotional space, it's not the end of something, it's the beginning of a shift that can either bring everything into alignment, or create a distance that feels confusing if you don't understand it. And I know, a part of you is starting to feel something right now, a recognition. A quiet awareness that maybe, just maybe, you've felt this too. That hesitation, that holding back, that waiting for the perfect moment to be fully open. But what if that moment never comes the way you expect? What if it's not about waiting for the right time, but about recognizing that the time has already arrived, and passed, more than once? Stay till the end, because this is where the energy starts to deepen. Your person is not walking away in anger. They are not closing the door. They are not turning their back on what they feel. They are simply, no longer willing to stand still in the same uncertainty. And that difference is everything. Because when someone stops waiting, it doesn't always mean they stopped caring. Sometimes it means they finally start choosing clarity. And clarity has a way of changing everything that comes after. But here's the part that hasn't fully revealed itself yet. What they plan to do next is not what you think. It's not sudden. It's not loud. It's not something the world would notice immediately. It's something quieter, something more intentional, something that will either bring everything into the open, or gently create a new direction, without force, without conflict. And you are standing right at the edge of that moment. Not later, not someday, right now. So the real question isn't, why won't they wait? The real question is, what is this moment asking from you, before everything shifts completely? And if you listen closely, beyond the noise, beyond the assumptions, beyond the fear of getting it wrong, you might already know the answer, but something inside you is still deciding whether to stay silent, or finally step forward into the truth you've been holding. And this exact space between knowing and acting, this is where everything is about to change. But not yet, not fully, because there's still one piece missing. One realization that hasn't surfaced completely. One moment that will make everything clearer than it has ever been before. And when that moment arrives, you won't see this situation the same way again. There's something quietly shifting again. Can you feel it, Or is it still just beneath your awareness, like a thought that refuses to fully form? Because what you sensed before, that pause, that distance, that subtle change in their energy, it wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning of a deeper understanding that neither of you had fully stepped into yet. And now, that understanding is growing, not in a rush, not in chaos, but in a way that feels almost inevitable. Listen closely, because this is where the meaning starts to unfold in a way that might feel personal, almost as if it was always meant to reach you at this exact moment. Your person didn't just recognize something about you and stop there. No, that realization stayed with them. It followed them into quiet moments. It appeared when they were alone. It returned in the middle of their thoughts when they least expected it. And slowly, it began to change how they interpret everything between you. Let me ask you something, and don't answer too quickly. What happens when someone finally understands that the connection they feel is real, but incomplete? Not broken, not false, just unfinished. That's where they are. And this is where it becomes deeper than just waiting. Because now, they are no longer asking themselves if something exists between you. They know it does. The question that replaced it is far more powerful. What is this connection meant to become, if it stays exactly like this? Pause. Because that question, it doesn't allow comfort to stay comfortable. It doesn't allow silence to feel safe anymore. It gently pushes everything toward a point where something has to move. And here's the part that might feel unexpected. They're not blaming you. They're not even fully questioning you. They're questioning the space between you, the unspoken parts, the almost said words, the moments that could have turned into something more, but didn't. And every time they revisit those moments, something inside them tightens just a little more. Not in pain, but in realization. Realization that something meaningful has been hovering just out of reach, for longer than it should. Don't skip this, because this is where everything starts becoming clear in a way that can change everything. They have started to see your silence differently. Before, it felt like patience was enough. Now, it feels like a question without an answer. And the more they sit with that question, the more they feel the need to move towards something that feels certain, not perfect, not guaranteed, but real. And this is where their energy begins to shift in a way you might not have expected. They are not pulling away from you emotionally. They are pulling away from uncertainty. Do you see the difference? Because it's subtle, but it changes everything. It means their feelings are still there, still present, still connected to you in ways they don't even fully understand themselves. But now, those feelings are no longer enough on their own. They need direction. They need movement. They need something that feels like it's going somewhere, not just existing in place. And this is where something inside you might start responding. A quiet recognition. A subtle realization that maybe you felt the same thing too, but from the other side. Maybe you've held back because you weren't sure. Maybe you waited because you didn't want to risk something you couldn't control. Maybe you told yourself, if it's meant to happen, it will happen naturally. But what if natural doesn't always mean passive? What if natural sometimes requires a moment of courage that doesn't feel comfortable at first? Stay with this feeling, because it's leading somewhere important. Your person is now standing in a space where they are no longer just reacting to what happens between you. They are starting to choose what happens next. Not dramatically, not impulsively, but with a quiet determination that has been building over time. And here's the part that changes everything. They are no longer waiting for a sign from you. They are waiting for clarity within themselves. Let that sink in. Because once someone shifts from waiting for you to understanding themselves, everything begins to move differently. Their decisions, their energy, their presence, even the way they interact with you, it all starts to carry a new tone. A tone that says, I know what I feel, now I need to know what this is becoming. And if that answer doesn't reveal itself, they will create one. Not out of pressure, not out of frustration, but out of a quiet need to stop living in the in-between. Because the in-between, as beautiful as it can feel, cannot last forever. It either evolves, or it fades into something that never fully became what it could have been. And they feel that truth now, more clearly than ever before. There's a moment, coming soon, where their actions will reflect this shift. Not loudly, not in a way that demands attention, but in a way that changes the energy between you, in a way you will feel immediately. You might notice it in how they respond, or how they don't. You might notice it in a pause where there used to be ease, or a calm where there used to be quiet expectation. And when that moment arrives, it will feel different. Not wrong, not distant, just clearer. Because they will no longer be standing in the same emotional space they were before. And here's where it becomes deeply important for you to understand something. This is not a loss. This is not something slipping away. This is a transformation, happening in real time. Transformation requires awareness. It requires a willingness to see what has been hidden, even if it was never meant to be hidden in the first place. And that brings us to something even deeper. Something that has been present from the beginning, but never fully spoken. You have been feeling more than you allowed yourself to show. And they felt it. Not in words, not in clear actions, but in energy, in moments, in the way you looked, paused, hesitated. And for a long time, that was enough to keep them close, because it felt like something was building. But now, they need more than feeling. They need expression. They need confirmation. They need something that moves this connection out of the shadows, into something real and shared. And here's the quiet truth that changes everything. They are not asking for perfection. They are not asking for certainty. They are simply asking, even if silently, is this real enough to grow, or is it meant to stay exactly like this? And the answer to that question, it's not something they can decide alone anymore. Do you feel that? That shift? That moment where everything becomes a shared responsibility instead of a silent experience? Because that's where you are now, standing at a point where something inside you knows. This is not about waiting anymore. This is about choosing to remain where things are. Or choosing to step into something that feels uncertain, but real. And yes, uncertainty can feel uncomfortable. It can feel like stepping into something without knowing how it will unfold. But staying in the same place, when something inside you is ready to move, that creates a different kind of discomfort. A quieter one, a slower one, but one that doesn't go away. And your person, they feel that now. They feel that staying still is no longer neutral. It's a choice. And they are reaching a point where they can no longer choose it. Not because they don't care, but because they care enough to want something that grows. Something that breathes. Something that moves forward, even if slowly. And here's the part that hasn't fully revealed itself yet. There is still something they haven't done. Something they've been holding back. Not out of fear, but out of respect for your pace, for your space, for your way of expressing things. But that restraint, it's reaching its limit. And when it does, they will step into a moment that changes everything. Not dramatically, not forcefully, but with a quiet honesty that cannot be ignored. And when that moment arrives, You will feel it, not as pressure, but as clarity. A clarity that will ask you something simple, but powerful. Are you ready to meet this connection where it truly is, or will you keep it where it has always been? And your answer. It won't just shape what happens next. It will reveal something about you, that even you may not have fully understood until now. But wait. Because there's one more layer, something even deeper, something that explains why this is happening now, and not before. And once you see that, everything will make sense in a way it never has before.